Molly, welcome to the show. I am very excited to chat today. Could you give us a little background into you, where you're based, all those things?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm a Midwesterner, so
Nice.
that's the Midwest nice that comes out. But I based in Los Angeles and in the Northeast. My market in the Northeast is New York and New England. I have a mountain home in Vermont.
Yeah.
Where I am right now, and it's cold. It's very cold. Yeah, so I have been a wedding photographer. I've had my business since 2009. It's making me feel real old. I was actually a wedding
Oh,
planner
nice.
before that. I did that for 7 years just as a part-time gig. Always wanted to transition into photography,
Mm-hmm.
but weddings kind of found me. I was getting my master's degree in fine art photography. My entire plan was to
Oh, yeah.
go the collegiate route. So for me, education was always a goal. And I just took the really long way to get there. And yeah, I've been photographing weddings. I'm in my 15th year. I launched my education workshop and mentorship portion of my business over the last 2 years.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
cool.
kind of
What
quick and
drew
dirty.
you to
Yeah.
studying fine art photography?
Well,
Okay.
there's a loaded answer on that, but I'm gonna keep it fairly surface level. I've never been
Uh-huh.
one to conform to the norm, and I am not an office person. I don't actually really
Gotcha.
do well with authority in general. So I always knew I wanted to work for myself. Photography has been a lifelong journey of mine. My mom gave me my first camera when I was 6 or 7, going out to summer camp. I also have a huge interest in fashion. So I've worked in the fashion industry, worked for a fashion house in London. When I moved to LA, that's actually one of the first jobs I got, was working in fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Realized real quickly that I didn't love the industry, and wanted to really go hard on the photo aspect of things. So for me, it was okay, how do I do all of this? But how do I also just like be a helper? I've always been a natural helper. So for me, it was photography education. And I just figured in order to do that at a higher level,
Right.
you have to have a certificate. And I was like, okay, get my master's. And I always say it was the best, worst thing I would never do again. But it's gotten me to where I am in my business, taught me a lot, got me very
Mm.
serious about being thoughtful um, and really ruthless at times in terms of looking at my work. During that time, during my MFA and shortly after, I actually helped open the
Oh, yeah.
flagship gallery of Leica Gallery in Los Angeles. So I was
Nice.
working directly with the gallery director there. We did curation shows. So curation has been a big part of my journey. It transformed my business during COVID. And yeah, I've just found it be so helpful for so many of like my friends and peers and even like mentees that I've helped work through things.
Oh, yeah.
Just it makes such a difference in how you're
Yeah.
presenting your business.
Yeah, that's really
So
cool. I
yeah, it's
like
wild.
that. I feel like anyone that I've talked to who has studied fine art photography, they're all like very
Mm,
intentional about how you photograph, what you
mm,
show, what photos you're taking to tell the story, and not just like, here's the story. I'm just gonna point my camera and click, but really being mindful and intentional with the frames that you're actually taking and delivering.
right. And I think what's really interesting too is that in the wedding industry, it
Yeah.
is such a fast paced day, and it can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. That's why I think not, it, it's funny because while I was getting my degree, they always kind of like
Oh,
poo
yeah.
pooed on weddings as being a cop out. And I was like, dude, you would never be my studio teacher. I look back, I was like, you would
No.
never be able to hack this. You would never be able to do what I do. So for me, it's really an interesting juxtaposition of being able to manage a timeline and still allow yourself to take the time to be thoughtful and be curated and be conscious of like composition and like conscious of you're being hired to showcase your art for these people. And how do you still do that in the chaos of a day? Maybe it's not in the chaos of the day. Maybe
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
curating on the
No,
back
I like
end,
that
which is
the
usually what I
curate
do.
or your art for your clients, like producing your art for those people. I like
Yeah.
that sentiment that this is not, yeah, yeah, exactly.
You're being commissioned as an artist. You're being commissioned
Yeah,
to tell someone's story thoughtfully
right.
and artfully as
Which is what
they would never
makes
be able
everyone
to.
different, is we
Yeah,
are
so
all different artists and we have different eyes and how we photograph things and see things and want to tell the story of our couples and clients. And yeah, I also got that you know wedding photographers are like the lowest rung. Just, oh yeah, if you can't make it as a studio photographer, I guess you could go be a wedding
why?
photographer. And I
I
don't know
don't
if it
get
was
this.
like back in the old film days of where a wedding photographer really just showed up for the ceremony and then family photos and took a picture of you by the cake, and then they were like, all right, peace, we'll I'll send you some
Yep.
scans, or I
See ya.
guess there
Yeah.
weren't scans back then. Well, I'll develop these. And yeah.
No.
And
You're getting
yeah,
the
because
actual
I
photos.
occasionally, pretty often, have some grandfather of the bride or someone come up to me and just like, yeah, this, y'all are all over the place. You're just taking pictures of everything. I'm like, that is what we're hired to do. Yeah. And he was like, at my wedding, we only had 17 photos.
It's
And
the job.
yeah, it's changed quite a bit.
Right.
So yeah, it is definitely not the lowest
Yeah.
rung of any photography genre, for sure. There's so much to it.
Yeah, it's so funny because I think as I've
Uh-huh.
been the theme of being a black sheep in my life has always been reoccurring, and I was the black sheep of my 13-person group, and I always got the insult like it was, I guess it was just like a backhanded compliment of like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, your work's really pretty." And I was like, oh, and that's
Yeah.
actually where my workshop series is called Make Pretty. And it's like the story behind it is like kind of a dig at this jerk of a professor that I
Oh
had.
no, of course not.
But I'm not bitter at all. No resentment there. But I find it so odd that in this fine art program I was being kind of just like docked
Yeah.
for having really aesthetically beautiful work. And what I found is that a lot of that genre of educators, and honestly just kind of that personality and
Mm-hmm.
generation, if you weren't this like dark tortured artist that like was
Yeah.
willing to starve for their work, it wasn't like commendable. Where I was like, dude, I just like sold my entire show
Yeah.
and I'm making
Yeah.
money on the weekends. Cool. Like I wanna have like a life I enjoy,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah, we do
happen to be
not have
really
to
good at this,
be
so I'm gonna
starving
go do it.
artists anymore. Like that is not something you have to be as a
No,
photographer.
it's
It is
changed.
changed to where you can. And even back then they probably could have too. But there's like something about, like, I know people who just, they want to be that martyr of like, well, I'm a struggling artist, so that's why
Mm,
I, make my own clothes, or
right.
that's why I do this. I'm like, you can make your own clothes because you love making your own clothes, and you can make a good living being an
Totally.
artist. So yeah, no, I love that. So
100%.
okay, so with portfolio, I mean, you talked about how they were like, your photos are all pretty and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and like that set you apart. You look different than everyone
Mm-hmm.
else in the program. What what does that look like? How do we even begin to curate a portfolio, and why would we want to do that?
Yeah. So I think the place that I got to, I've always been good at kind of like being able to pick apart, like, hey, these all just kind of look too much alike. I'm going to choose one of these. Of these 5 images, they all look the same. They all don't need to be in the gallery. Which is the best? Which is the strongest? I've been fairly good at being able to narrow that down. Maybe that's because of my schooling, going to art school. You just get, you know, that kind of drilled into you. But it could just be inherently I'm good at cutting my own work. I don't know. But I think it's important to really start to examine your work when you are bored, when you are sick of shooting the same stuff. For me, Southern California weddings look a lot alike. And I'm sure in Texas,
mostly in barns,
weddings look a lot alike. And so barns or tents or whatever it is, like, I was so sick of shooting on the beach. Like, I was like, don't give me a nut, like, take me to the desert. Like, I want to get, out of here. So for me, it kind of became a point of shooting weddings for 6 or 7 years. They all looked the same. I was uninspired. I was so sick of looking at the same color palette. I was sick of not necessarily working with the same people, but the fact that there was no creative, everything got very routine. So my curation, my most recent, like, big time curation that changed my business happened in 2020. And that was when I decided during COVID that I was not going to come out on the other side of this doing the same stuff that I was. I needed to completely change this. And what I did was I created 3 high-end, very intentional and marketable editorials for myself. I did it, spent a lot of money and just put it out there, did an entire rebrand, did a whole new website, all in this like down season, right? Of our wedding season. So like November to February, we're rarely shooting. In California, our season's year round, but it's not as much. So I spent all this time. I'm due to launch. I'm due to launch like right pretty much like in the thick of COVID. We're all in lockdown. Like, it's like, I'm like, whatever, I'm going through with it anyway. I'm doing it so that when we get to the other side of this, I've got more aligned clients. So I get to that point and I just decided to completely overhaul my presence. And, it made me feel more confident in the work that I was putting out there. It made me feel more excited about the work that I wanted to shoot. It helped me to really clarify what my signature style was. It was the first time that I really infused work that had my point of view. I talk a lot about like having an aesthetic point of view, and I think curation helps create that. So for me, it was like, okay, how am I really just honing in on this particular vantage point or point of view of mine that resonates so truly with me, that gets me excited. It has my own personal style. So I just put all of that out there. And it's so funny because when you do, people notice. Not just because of the drastic change, right? Like, my work didn't necessarily look so different. My editing style changed ever so slightly. I really got back to my roots and was shooting a lot more film, whereas before I was kind of just shooting to appease my client. Nobody wanted to pay for film. So my new process was, no, film is included. This is part of it. And so it had a different vibe, and I was so here for it. And within weeks of that launch, I got 3 inquiries that I all booked that were so aligned with where I wanted to go. And I even made sure I like reached out to one of the planners. I was like, hey, just want to make sure that you saw this new rebrand. Like, I've completely shifted gears. I'm not falling into that category anymore. And she said, no, that's exactly why my clients wanted you. And you looked different than everybody else in Southern California looks the same. Yours looks slightly different, a little bit more editorial, a little bit higher, or like elevated, if you will. So for me, it immediately started yielding returns. And because of the confidence, and I felt so strong in the curated work and body of work that I'd put together, I was asking for more money. And rightfully so. I've been in it long enough. I've had enough experience, and I've gotten to the point where I am able to to discern what is
Yep.
should live on a website or be posted on
No.
social, or not
Yes.
everything needs to be out there. And I think that's the misconception, is less is more. And especially as you move up in your market, less
yeah.
is more. I can't
Yeah.
you know, I can't say that enough. So I was
Wow.
going in a matter of weeks charging double.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's, you know, I'm not saying that everyone by curating their body of work is going to be able to do that, but what it does do is give you a shift in perspective, which
Yes.
can change
Oh
so
yeah.
many other
Yeah.
things.
I love that you said not everything needs to be out there, because for the first, probably 3 or 4 years in business, I blogged every single photo shoot. If it was a wedding, if it was an engagement, if it was bridal portraits, if it was family photos, newborns, anything, it hit the blog. And that's how I delivered like their sneak peek photos was.
Oh, I mean, that's smart. It's smart business. That's really smart business, but it
No,
doesn't
it really
necessarily
didn't.
attract the people that you want. And then you brought up a really good point too, that you're like, oh, weddings, portraits, babies, maternity, whatever, family, whatever it was. I'm a believer that those things should all live separately. And I know that people will disagree with me on that they can all like coexist. I don't think they can. I think it confuses your client, especially if you are wanting to book a higher end client. They don't want to see you being able to do everything. They want to see you being able to do wedding photography really well, or family or maternity or newborn or whatever it is really well. So figuring out how to, again, curate those separately, I think is important.
Yes,
in
I agree too.
a brand.
Really only do family photos for past couples. Yeah.
I mean, they're legacy
but I
clients. You should.
rarely
You
post any of that
should.
online. I don't even think I have that on my
You don't have
website.
to show it.
And my website is for weddings, because that is what I specialize in. And it makes sense that you would want to really showcase what you're wanting your ideal target clients to desire, because if they're coming to you and going to other photographers as well, and they're like, okay, so this one, it looks like they specialize in weddings, like their whole website is weddings and social media is all about weddings, and they have these great tips and all this stuff, and then they go to yours and it's like, here's weddings, and here's a newborn session that I did the other day, and here are some headshots that I did for this corporate client. It's like, okay, you're kind of all over the place. Like, it looks, your wedding photos are fine, but I don't know if you're like, that's your bread and butter. That's
What's your heart in? What's your heart? Yeah, like where are you being pulled? And for me, like, quite frankly, I really don't like taking family photos. So for me, I like, this is gonna make me, you're a parent, so this is gonna make me sound bad. I don't have kids, but I just,
as a parent, I also don't think.
And it's like, I don't find it. I'm like, I don't find it amusing. And it's just one of those things where I was like, I found myself just getting angry that I was scheduling all these mini sessions at the end of the year. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? So finally, I just gave myself permission like a few years ago. I was like, no. Not even for my clients. No, like, I'm done. And, you know, that was the freedom of that was so nice. And I think there is a way to, if you want to be that legacy photographer, I think that is very smart, because you are creating a lifelong client. But there is a way then that you have to package that. If you are not caring about whether or not your wedding clients are continuing their family and you're just booking one-off family stuff, that's where I think it needs to be separate, for sure. But, you know, you do you, but make sure that it makes sense, and like make sure that it is done in a thoughtful way where it doesn't just look like you're shooting anything for anyone who will
I
hire
completely
you.
agree. And also, like, if you do, because I enjoy some family photos most of the time, like, I don't like the everyone sit over here in these wildflowers and stare at the camera and, you know, having to like dangle things over the camera like, hey kids, look over here, smile, no, look back over here, and that kind of stuff. I'm like, this is not fun for me. This is not fun. Yeah. I'm like, you're gonna get one
Not my jam.
nice photo out of this. And I love like the lifestyle and just like going to a creek and just walking in the water with the kids and taking pictures of them like finding toads and stuff like that. I'm like, this is the stuff that you're going to want to remember about the kids at this life stage. And that's the only family photos that I take now.
Yeah, back when I was shooting family or was shooting newborn for my clients, I would always just be so specific. And I would say, I just want you to know, like, this is my approach. I don't know what your expectations are, so I want to make sure we're aligned in what I'm shooting and what I'm delivering. I honestly felt more pressure delivering mini session galleries than I do delivering a wedding gallery, because I think the amount of money people pay for portrait sessions or even mini sessions, I mean, they're designed to be cheaper and more affordable, but I honestly feel like there's even more pressure because you're having to manufacture these moments within a 15 to 20 minute time slot. And I don't know, like I don't know. I just like, I don't have kids, but as a mom, I would want to be like, well, did we get everything? Did we get did we get it? Like, did we not? Like, what did, and it's like that kind of energy.
No, me neither. And I know that there are other photographers. Like I know like Rebecca Rice thrives in mini sessions. She does that all the time. And that is great. Yeah. Yeah. And if that is for you, like for you, Molly, you are fine art wedding photographer. Like that is where you thrive. And that is what makes you come alive creatively. And like going to a wedding is not like I can't believe like I got to go this Saturday again to another wedding. It's just like, I cannot wait. I am ready early and I'm out the door and yeah.
And exactly. And the more aligned clients that I get, the more they trust me, which is really lovely, because I find that like when I was in that mundane portion of my business, I wasn't charging probably I know I wasn't because I remember my taxes. I wasn't charging enough for the value I was providing. And for me, you start to feel resentful, and I never want to feel resentful towards clients, towards planners, towards anybody, because I'm choosing this profession, I'm choosing this job. But what I do think is been great is with this major shift, I'm finding aligned clients who trust me to do my job, who aren't as concerned about a shot list. Yes, of course, we need to get those like logistical family photos for your parents, grandparents. Those are a must, and we'll do it, and we'll do it efficiently. But I want you to be a part of your party. I don't want you to feel like photography held you back in any way. And the more you can allow us just to like candidly document your day and have it be so like authentically you. And
everyone's been using it over,
like
but
such a a hot word. I don't love to use it for branding, but truly just allowing your couples to move organically, naturally within and the setting that they are, and gently guiding them, but not having these stagnant poses. And it's just really freeing, and it makes you really open your eyes to what gets you excited and how you can implement that on a wedding day. And if you don't know how to do that, then practice it on your off days, or practice it, or go to a workshop, or set something up yourself, and like give yourself the space to find what really lights you up, because those are the images that will translate the best on your marketing and on social and on your website. And you'll be pulled to share those more when you are through your
and
portfolio.
Like with all of that, I'm just like picturing the listener right now who's like, Molly, that sounds amazing, I want that.
I was like, that was a tangent.
That's perfect. We love tangents.
If that was ever a tangent,
but like for the listeners who really want to kind of break into that next level of photography, or maybe not level is the right word, but just like into the different client base, like you said, serving a higher market.
Serving higher
Yeah.
market. If you want,
How
if you want to make more money.
what are some steps that people can take for that when it comes to like their portfolio and what they're sharing with everyone?
Sure. You have to think about who your ideal
Mm.
client, what they're going to want to see, and that might not align with what you're currently shooting. So that means that you need
Mm.
to remove the things that they don't want and figure out how you can showcase what they do want. If you are wanting to be a destination photographer, but you are landlocked in, Missouri, you need to plan some trips and get scenics and get different lifestyle images in different cities that you want to target, or you need to showcase that you are on an airplane or whatever. Like, there are different ways that you can showcase this elevated
Mm-hmm.
you know marketing, if you will. And again, this is just for the example of destination, but the other part is, what's stopping you from creating like what they'd be into? So my biggest suggestion for people who are looking to showcase higher, not quality, because the
Yeah.
imagery in itself, I'm sure everyone's producing great quality, but in terms of higher notoriety with brands and designer brands. Our luxury clients are not going to be showcasing Steve Madden shoes. They're just not. So if you have flat lays like with Steve Madden shoes in it, that doesn't mean that that's a bad client or it wasn't a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
wedding. It just means you're going to get more of those. So if you're showcasing, you're going to show whatever you're showing, you're getting more of, right? So for me, when I wanted to change things, I was like, oh man, none of my brides have like worn Jimmy Choos. I went and I bought 3 pairs of designer shoes, brought them home,
Yeah.
did flat lays,
Mm-hmm.
returned them the next day. I'm sorry, there's no shame in that. Like, designers do that, stylists do that for photo shoots. Why is it any different?
Right.
If anything, we're not even putting them on
Yeah.
somebody's foot. It's literally just a flat lay. But that's the quickest and easiest way that I tell people that it is a quick shift in showcasing the level of client you might be serving. And you want to be able to think about your ideal client
Mm-hmm.
picturing themselves in your photos. So if you want somebody who is more organic and free flowing and like willing to go prancing through that creek, you need to set that up. You need to figure out how you can do it, whether it's offering a free shoot to a really
Yeah.
attractive set of friends of yours. Great. Like, I know that sounds shallow, but it really is like how things shift. And it is unfortunate that, not everything, the Steve Madden
Right.
shoes just aren't going to hold next to Jimmy Choos. They're
Yeah.
just not. And I love Steve Madden. I'm not dogging Steve Madden. I've got a number. But it's that visual branding and the alignment of that you want to
Mm.
showcase, that you have that in common with your ideal client. Oh yes, I also see value in this brand or in this style or this type of floral or whatever it
Yeah.
is, and be able to showcase that. So there's ways that you can like kind of tippy toe into it. My very first suggestion for people is to get those elevated styling details. I don't suggest going into debt for this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
buy and return, like, do not keep. So that is the easiest way. But then I think the other part of this too, a lot of times people are too close to their work and they can't look at it objectively in a way where they don't feel the emotion behind
Uh-huh.
maybe what they experienced on a wedding day for that client. But from a curator, so as stepping into like my curator gallery shoes, it's okay, what am I feeling as the viewer, as somebody who's unattached to what was happening? Maybe there's this really sentimental
Right.
story, but nobody else knows that. So how are you showcasing impactful images that someone who is not attached to them is resonating with? And I know so many educators offer this. There's image curation, there's gallery audits. You can get people's feedback. Those are fairly attainable price points typically. My offerings, I feel like, are pretty attainable, and you get a substantial amount of feedback, but so many people in the industry do this and offer this. So just find someone who you admire and see if they're willing to do this for you, whether you're hiring them or not. See if you're willing to get eyes and be like, hey, can you look at this gallery and can you just mark your favorites?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? What are they coming back with? Because I'm sure everyone who has been published, who's listening to this, will agree with me when you say you send a gallery to an editor and the photos that they choose to focus on the blog are like, oh, I wonder why they chose that, because that's not my favorite. But there's a reason. There's definitely a reason. So I think having a second set of eyes on your work, that is going to be the next step to really help you look at your work, take a step back and look at it a little bit more objectively and really get more discerning in how you are showcasing things. And this also goes to, don't showcase the same pose over and over and over. Even if it's your go-to, we can't see 12 of the same him kissing her forehead on your homepage. There has to be hero images, which maybe that's your go-to shot and that's what people come to you for. Great. But we need to see like the best supporting actors throughout. Do you know what I mean? Like they all serve a purpose. So those supporting and establishing shots are very important, especially on a homepage, especially on social media, because that's where everyone's landing and that's where you get your chance at a first impression. So those first few things of like elevating your details, because details are a really easy way to supplement into your feed, into social. They don't have to be from a wedding. And then getting a second pair of eyes on your work to really give you insight of what's resonating.
Yes. And I love that you mentioned not having the same pose or the same type of photo over and over and over again, because there are those poses that we love. And it's like, I love to do this with every couple. And every time that I see the pose and like that photo afterwards, I'm just like, oh, this is great. I got to share this. Yeah.
You're like, this is the sneak peek. And
oh, they're all the same.
You see your social and you're like, oh, there's like 12 of those 20 squares.
And like, and even just shot. The like if you have a close-up photo and then a wide landscape hero image, like that is going to look better than just a bunch of close-up photos, bunch of details, a bunch of the same thing. It's going to show a more well-rounded experience for your potential client who is scrolling through your website and they just see a bunch of close-up photos of people's hands and kissing foreheads. And they're like, okay, I see that you do this well. Yep. Can you take a photo of us, in our environment? Yeah.
Don't be afraid of white space. So like in the graphic world, like white space is referred to obviously all the space that doesn't have print or graphics or anything on it. White space in weddings are detail images or scenics, or maybe it's literally the sky with a single bird flying through. Like those are some of my favorite shots to add into a gallery, because they're establishing of the feeling, of the sense of the atmosphere that you're in, and they serve so well as breaking up the monotony on your feed. So on that grid, use that wide, that white space like wisely. It allows your viewer a chance to like breathe, and like it allows the eye a chance to rest, which when someone goes and sees so much stuff on a feed, it can be overwhelming. Granted, we're of the era that like people are just used to it now, but I can tell you someone's going to stay on your feed a lot longer if it is aesthetically pleasing to scroll and they don't feel overwhelmed. And that's where the curation and like really being mindful of your work and showcasing the best of the best. And again, obviously what you want
and that sets you apart from all the other photographers that they're going to. And it's just like couple and close-up photos, and then they go to yours and it's like, oh, there's that photo of that bird flying through the air, and here's a beautiful colored door with of the venue, and those kind of things. Like it's like, oh, this is more interesting to go through, and why do they post this picture of a door? What is this door? And like that would boost their curiosity a little bit more of wanting to stay on your feed, wanting to stay on your website longer than, this looks like everyone else. Let me go to their pricing now.
even exactly, even if it's not getting the traction or the engagement that
Mm-hmm.
you want, it's still serving a purpose. So please don't let that be the reason why you don't do it. If you want that hero shot because that's what gets the most likes every time, great. If it works, awesome. But as a curated body of work, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice by not
Yes.
creating an experience for the person who lands on it. So I think it's super important. Like for me, when I started shooting destination very early on in my career, it's like, okay, like I had a destination wedding in Switzerland, and it's like, so I started showing like the mountains and like all the scenic photos that I took there. I started showing that. They're like, oh, where is that? And I was like, oh, that was at a wedding that I did in Switzerland. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you travel? Yes, I absolutely do. So it just starts to resonate with people, and it's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I know that's a lot, but just
Yeah.
think of your Instagram as a homepage also. It has to be
Mm-hmm. Yep.
thoughtfully
Okay. Molly, I
thoughtfully
have loved
displayed.
this. This has been so many good things. Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm so
Hey,
bossy.
that's what we
I'm
need
like, don't do
sometimes
this.
is
Don't
someone
do
to tell
this.
us, because there's so many people. I just had someone recently ask, like, I'm a new photographer and there's so much information out there. How do I know what to listen to, what to implement? It's like, do
Yeah.
this, don't do that.
Hmm.
Like, if you want this outcome, go do this thing, instead of just
Exactly.
like, well, you can if you want to. But yeah, no, I love that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know my
Mm-hmm.
method is not for everybody. I know I'm not for everybody. And it's like there is stuff out there
Yep.
for you. If you don't resonate with me or resonate with somebody
Yeah.
else, there is a resource out there for you.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
that's the beauty of
just like
having so
stick with
many
me.
photography educators out there, is you're going to find your people. And I have been mentored by many different
Yeah.
photographers, and some of them I was like, yeah, I got nothing. I'm sorry.
Same.
Like, I know this wasn't a waste of money, but I kind of feel like it may have been.
Oh, I've had some waste. I've had some
Yeah.
wastes of money.
Yep, yep.
I've had some real
Yeah,
regretful
and then I've had
false
others that I'm
statements.
like, I would have given you 10 times this because of the value that I got and the way that I learned from you.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But yeah, Molly, I really appreciate everything that you
Right.
shared today. And I'm excited for the listener who's just like pulling up their portfolio right now, and they are curating and they're looking at that, and they're going to
Yeah.
get some eyes on their portfolio to view as a potential client, and not the photographer who is emotionally tied to every single photo. But yeah, no, I love all that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the thing. It's about telling the story
Yes.
really in a sense in the least amount of photos. So it's like if you are somebody who's delivering 1,500 photos for a wedding, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's not only overwhelming for you,
Yeah.
but it's overwhelming for the client. Sometimes they don't know what to do with that. So it's like, how can we tell the story thoughtfully and accurately, and with the depth that it deserves in the least
Yes.
amount of images? That's
Yeah.
what I'm always
That's,
thinking
I
of
mean,
when I'm
that's the
going through
best.
the
I
work.
mean, that we go into like layering and framing and all that kind of stuff to get like, I
I know.
love a good, like, whenever there's toasts or something at a wedding, and getting the foreground and the
Mhm.
speaker and all of that layered together, instead of here's a photo of who's speaking, here's a photo of the reaction from the couple, but layering them together to tell the story in one
Right.
image, instead of, well, if you put these three or four
Hmm.
in a row, it makes sense. So yeah, I love it. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, there's part of
Yeah.
the show that I love to do where we talk about what we're loving this week, and it can
Oh
be
yes.
anything
Oh boy.
from movies, TV shows, books, to just like a new tree that you saw on a walk or something. What are you loving this week? Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I can just go for it. Okay. Okay, well, my husband made me a really good burrito last
Nice.
night, and that was the first burrito in a while. So that was really yummy. No, actually what I'm loving, I'm not a big reader. And as
Uh-huh.
somebody who travels very, very frequently, I was on the road for about 4 months of last year. So for somebody who's on the road all the
Mm.
time, audibles have become my best friend. And I really, really love people's stories, and I love memoirs, autobiographies, that kind of stuff. Famous people, who, nobodies, it doesn't matter. I'm a big fan of Brandy Carlisle, and I just listened to her Audible, and I've listened to a number, and she just jumped to the top of my list. It was incredible. She's an amazing storyteller, and if
That's
you're a
cool.
fan, she sings in almost every chapter, which is rad. Yeah, so that I just finished that this week, and
Huh.
I was
That's
blown
really
away.
cool.
Like,
I like
blown
that
away.
about audiobooks, especially
Yeah.
whenever the author is reading it and you get
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, there are some that
It has to be
I'll
read by
get
the
and I'm like,
author.
"Oh, this is that one dude who's just and this is how we speak
Yeah,
through
it's not
this."
gonna
I'm like,
work.
"I'm going to fall asleep. I'm sorry."
Oh
But
no.
yeah.
Yeah, unless you're David
Yeah,
Attenborough,
yeah. So,
you're
okay,
not gonna
that's
be
really
able to
cool. I
swing
love
it for
that
me.
she sings in the audiobook as well. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
She sings in almost every chapter. So, and what's really amazing is she sings the songs of the stuff that she just talked about, whatever her life experience was or whatever. So now you're getting this, like, you might have loved a song for a certain reason, but now you are like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, this is really what the song is about, and you appreciate it in such a different level. I don't know. I was blown away. I obviously and I just if you're a fan, or even if you're not and you just are curious about famous
Yeah.
people's
No,
lives, I
that's
think it's
cool.
a really, really
I
good one to
am
listen
very
to.
curious about famous people's lives because I love the everyday
Mm.
part of celebrities because
Hmm.
oh yeah.
Well, living in LA, I've had
Oh,
my
I'm sure.
it's a lot. 15 years of living and working with celebrities, it's a lot, especially through
Yeah.
Leica. We had a lot of celebrity clients that we'd work with. So super fascinating. And just interesting in
Mm-hmm.
general. Like I said, I don't really get like starstruck, but it is very interesting to
Oh
learn the
yeah.
details of
Oh
these
yeah.
people's like existence
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and what makes
It's
them
very
famous,
very
you know?
interesting seeing a celebrity in like street clothes. And because I saw my
Mm.
first celebrity encounter was Donald Sutherland in Santa Monica, just walking his dog, and
Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry, but in
I
LA,
was gonna say
like
he's
famous
like in
people
a
that I
robe. Yeah,
see, like they literally look
yeah,
no, yeah, they look the most disheveled. So if you're in LA and you're not from there and you see somebody,
yeah.
they very
Oh yeah,
it's a 50-50
yeah.
shot that it
I
could
mean,
be
like
like
if I was
that
famous
kid.
and people would
You don't know.
recognize me if I'm like walking around in like a nice suit or blazer or something, I'm like, I'm definitely gonna like not do my hair and I'm
Yeah.
gonna be wearing this old stained hoodie
You're going to be a
and
hot
no one's gonna
mess.
recognize me. But yeah, like that
Yeah.
was I was just like, that's Donald Sutherland. And like I waved at him and then he waved back and that is mine. I know. Yeah.
What a gem.
I was very, very
That's a
happy
good one
and
to
that was my
see.
first time out in California. So I was like, see, California is magical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come back out.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Well,
that'll
I'll
be fun.
take you on a Star Studded
Okay.
tour.
Cool. I like that, and I'll have a link to that book in the show notes as well. Um, let's see. I am
Oh
loving.
yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
before we started recording, we were talking about HBO Max, and
Hmm.
recently finally got the full
Oh
subscription and
yeah.
everything. I've done trials before, but I was like, there's too many shows on there that I was
Good for
interested
you.
in, and I was like, it's gonna be worth it, and it has been.
Yeah.
So I just watched White Lotus,
Yes.
and I watched both of them.
First or
But
second season?
yeah, it's
Okay,
a
yeah.
wild story.
Wild. Isn't it
It's
amazing?
great filming. Like the cinematography, the way that they would just
Incredible.
like back to that white space of just having the undertow
Yep.
of the waves setting the scene. Yes.
Setting the
And
scene.
it
Those
definitely drew you
establishing
more
shots.
into the story
Exactly.
than just like going from this conversation over to this conversation that's now happening on the beach. And yeah,
It
yeah.
sets a
And
mood.
like,
It sets a
yeah. And
mood.
some of
Yeah.
those
Oh, that's such a
establishing
good one. I'm
shots
glad you watched
did
it.
like really change the mood of like, oh, something sinister is happening, or this is like, you know,
Yeah.
something sneaky is going on. And
Yeah,
I
for
personally, I liked season 1 better
Yeah.
than season 2.
So yeah, I have mixed. I think season 1 was
Yes, that
so
could be it.
different than
Yeah.
anything we had seen that the shock value makes it really, really interesting.
Plus,
And
I
thought
love
the
Connie
characters
Britton
were
and
amazing. I feel like this.
Steve Zahn. Steve Zahn was one of my
Yeah.
favorites in the early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah. So funny. So funny. So I think the storyline of the second one wasn't as like maybe interesting,
Yes.
but I thought the character choices were really interesting. So I mean, they both serve different things, and it's like, you know, your show is good when you're really, really annoyed by somebody like in the show, or you know, like they've nailed you know, the character, or you're just like, why are you like that? You know what I mean? Like, why are you making that decision? Like, you know that it's a good job because it's like thoughtfully done. But I agree. I think there's plus and minus to both of them. But
they're
like
both great. But yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, Italy, you can't go wrong with Italy.
Yeah,
So just
the scenery and those establishing
was
shots of just the architecture and everything. I'm just like, yeah. Oh yeah. I know. It was crazy. So yeah, White Lotus is great. There's a reason they've won awards and stuff.
Amazing.
But yeah, well, that's what I'm loving. Molly, where can people find you? Where can they follow along? Find you on socials, all those things.
Sure, yeah. My wedding photography website is mollymccauley.com. And then my education, workshops, mentorship, all of those offerings are at makeprettyworkshop.com. And same thing for social. So it's Make Pretty Workshop on Instagram and MollyMcCauley_photo on Instagram.
Okay. Well, sweet. Yeah. I'll have those linked in the show notes. So listener, you can just scroll on down and click on over to those. But yeah. Well, Molly, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed getting to talk to you today. Absolutely. All right.
So did I. Thanks for having me.
Listeners, viewers, it was good having you here on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye, y'all.